Hey everybody, my next guests are a legendary hip-hop group from Long Island, New York, best known for their 1988 single Strong Island. Here they are, AJ Rok and B-Luv, the legendary JVC Force. What's up, guys?
What's good? What's good? What's good?
Man, this is like I said, man. This is an honor for me to talk to you guys. I'm a Brentwood kid. Came up class of '89. You grew up with Eric and Parrish and Craig Mack and all them, and you guys were right around the way in CI, um, pioneers in the hip hop game. So, I guess the first thing I want to ask you guys to do to describe to people watching this that might not remember or know or been around, what was the hip hop scene like in that era of those kind of mid '80s on Long Island at that time period?
So you gotta figure this is a time when you really kind of had to be from the five boroughs to really be official hip hop. And you didn't have, and you had people from Long Island getting it in, like Prince Paul with Stetsasonic, but nobody knew he was from Long Island. You had Divine Sounds, Disco Richie, 5+5=10.
Oh
With
yeah,
Divine Sounds, and we're back again. Disco Richie from Brentwood, but nobody knew that.
right.
So then you had Rakim and Public Enemy. So Rakim said he's roughing up to break New York from Long Island in a record.
Yeah. Yes, the God, baby.
And then you had Chuck that said Strong Island, where I got him wildin'.
Strong Island, where I got a wildin'.
But even then, if you just didn't know, you didn't know they was from Long Island, really.
Right,
You know,
right,
people thought Rakim was from like Queens or Brooklyn.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So B-Luv, credit what credit is due, B-Luv came up with the idea to write it. We actually, that wasn't the record that got us signed. The new school, which was B-Luv's demo by himself, got us signed, and they wanted us to do something for the B side. So B went home, pinned Strong Island, the whole record, came by my house around the corner the next day, and that was history. But what it did was it gave our region the same thing like Queensbridge did in Queens, the same thing like those hundreds of records about Brooklyn did for Brooklyn, the same
Right,
thing
right,
South Bronx did for the South Bronx. You know what I'm saying? For the Bronx.
right, right.
Long Island had an anthem that they never had before, and more people were claiming Long Island after that point. So I think it was a seminal moment. You know what I'm saying?
Listen to the situation, my son. I'm as serious as cancer, all fun and done. For the time, the people correspond the rhymes, the two is valid. The best you will find.
Living in CI, who the hell am I? AJ Rok the juice, I can fly. Cool with the riffing guy, keep a handle. Cause if you don't, I'll wax you down like a candle.
Like, even when I say living in CI, who the hell am I? When I be in the city, people be asking me where I live in CI. They talk about Coney Island.
Right, right, right.
You know what I'm saying? They didn't know about Central Islip. Like,
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
I had a couple of nights I was in the city, and there was like 12, 15 of them. And I'm like, yo, by the amusement park. And I just jetted. Like, I didn't want to get no long conversation about I'm not from Coney Island. So I was like, yo. But yeah, they thought you were talking about Coney Island when I said living in CI. A lot of people didn't know that Central Islip, in Suffolk County.
So let me say this. Let me say this. Back then, in the early '80s of hip hop, it was about the boroughs, but it was pretty much about for the boroughs. Staten Island was about as unrecognized as we were, even though they had the Force MDs.
And people didn't know that they was from Staten Island back then. So yeah,
Staten Island was still pretty unrecognized. When we
Forgotten Borough, yeah.
Yeah, when we did the song Strong Island, by the time we did that song, talent was definitely coming up all over the place. So, but that song was what we realized that we needed to do to give Long Island a voice.
Right.
After that song, there were countless, groups that were successful coming out of Long Island that approached us and told us, this label and that label would have never gave us the opportunity until y'all made that song. So it was more so about penning an anthem, being on the same label on B-Boy Records with Boogie Down Productions, Scott LaRock, KRS-One, D Nice, Miss Melody, several other artists. It was more or less about what are we going to do in regards to getting Long Island known. Everybody is making records, everybody's doing what they're doing, but we have no anthem out there. We were still a place that people didn't really recognize 100%. They knew that there were dope groups that came from out there. But again, at that time, they were a few. So, you know, we definitely needed an anthem, and we definitely were blessed to go ahead and be able to pen that anthem and to put it out there for the people. And, you know, they carried it all of these years, and we became a staple in the hip hop game because of that song.
Right
I
on,
want
man.
to also say, you know, I document history a lot. So when Cold Crush and them were doing their thing in the Bronx, and you had those groups like the L Brothers and DJ AJ and all of them, what people don't know, we had hip hop in Central Islip and Long Island. We had groups like Unlimited Power, Midnight Express, Double Exposure. You know, I was kind of like a little brother to Double Exposure. I used to run with them. And one of their main members, G Red, she ended up, you know, almost being like the fourth member of our group. So we had groups like that were doing it. You know, we had, instead of parties, we had block parties, and we had like big backyard parties.
Yeah.
But they were doing this in the late 70s, 78, 79, 80, 81. These groups was getting it in. So we had hip hop. And so we had that underground hip hop the same way they did in the city. It's just people, we weren't on the map, so people didn't know. But I just wanted to document and give credits to those groups who came before us that like inspired. Like Double Exposure is a big inspiration for me, like because I spent so much time with them. You know, and Midnight Express and Unlimited Power and all of them. I was, you know, I'm a little older than B-Luv and Curt, so I was at those parties. You know what I'm saying? I was
Right.
in high school. I was at a lot of those parties. You know, and it was just an incredible moment. And I used to go back. I'm from Mount Vernon, so I used to go back to Mount Vernon and get those tapes from Cold Crush and bring them back. And it was the same kind of feel that we had out in Central Islip. And don't get me wrong, Central Islip wasn't the only place, but that's where we
Right.
represented. So, you know, you had groups in Brentwood, you had groups all through Nassau. I can't name them all, but hip hop existed. It just wasn't known outside the five boroughs.
Right on. And what I love about that time period in the 80s was hip hop was definitely bubbling. It was definitely hitting kind of just touching on the mainstream at that time period, but there still was a sense of innocence to it, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't so manufactured business yet. It felt like it was kind of brewing from the neighborhoods, and you know, and all that kind of stuff. And like, you know, coming up, you know, with when EPMD broke, and then you guys came out, I felt like, you know, everybody in my school, including myself, we all had rap groups. You guys inspired a generation. You guys inspired towns in Long Island. It was, and you created the anthem. So like, it was bigger than the music what you guys did. Do you like? Have you ever like? What do you take away from that when you look back at your kind of legacy?
Well, when we look back at the legacy, we credit, like, you know, Long Island as a whole, and I'm gonna tell you why. Back then, when we came about to go back, not so much us, but a lot of groups from Long Island, as you know, probably being from Long Island, it was different than going to a city party. When you went to the city parties, you heard the breaks, you heard
Right.
all of that came off a break beat 1 to 50, you know. And when you came to a Long Island party, you heard a lot of alternative music in the party. You know, don't get me wrong, we party just as hard as everybody else.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
we took advantage of the alternative music. Like in a Long Island party, you could hear the typical hip hop that you would hear in the city, but you could hear Billy Joel that night, or you
Right.
could hear all the notes that night. And
Right.
we took advantage of it. So coming through a sample friendly era, and meeting a great engineer like Charlie Murata.
Shout
Yeah.
out to Charlie Murata.
Shout out to Charlie, man. He rocks.
Yeah.
North Shore Soundworks.
Yeah,
Yep.
man. At that time, we pretty much had, like, you know, pick of the litter. The radio had space, everything else, and it gave us the opportunity to go. And Charlie was one of the first people in Long Island that I knew how to loop a record, and he did it manually, but he created the loop for us in Long Island. So some of the more popular songs that we grew up with all our life, now all of a sudden we had the opportunity to loop those songs and do certain things. Whereas in the city, a lot of the hip hop that was coming out from the city, they were created with drum machines and things like that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
a drum machine could never really bring back the funk that the original record brought back. But we partied a different way in Long Island. So, you know what I'm saying? When we heard something and it was hot and we felt like, hey, you know what? We grew up on this. It didn't matter what the genre was. We snatched it, we did it, we rapped to it. And I think that's what pretty much defined us in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The other thing is being from Long Island, and I attribute the same thing with out here in Westchester about Vernon now. You since you wasn't from the five boroughs, you had something to prove.
Right.
You had to do stuff. You had to go extra. You had to be a little more creative. You couldn't just do what everybody else is doing. You had to do something to stand out. And in those times, you talking about the 80s, everyone had a sound. No one sounded like Rakim. Public Enemy was like, Chuck's Master of the Universe voice and beats and all that stuff. And then, you had Biz doing his thing. You had EPMD bringing the funk back. You had De La that recreated, like, I interviewed Lord Jamal for my book for 914, and he said it was De La. Before that, they was walking around like, hoods in the street with the chains and the gear and all that. And De La showed him that you didn't have to do that to be hip hop, and credits some of their fashion because of De La. Like, just there's something a lot of people don't know.
Can it be my De La clothes or is it just my De La song?
So we were setting trends. We had to do something different, and everybody sounded different, and everybody had their own sound, which was great. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a great time, and like you said, it was sample friendly at the time. So, I think the first person that really got was Biz when he got that album.
Oh yeah, nobody beats
samples.
Yeah.
And then the next album was No Samples Allowed or something. Because he had to pay so much for them samples. But that was like really the change of, before that it was really sample friendly. And we were kind of underground, so them groups didn't know who he was anyway. You know what I'm saying? Them groups didn't know we even existed, at that time. So it was fun.
Yeah,
It was so defining at that time that by the time we walked in the B-Boy and we had a deal and we brought Strong Island in, they pretty much looked at us and was like, I don't know what y'all are doing. I don't know how y'all make this music, but just go back and go and make an album. And they never came out there to say anything about it. And funny enough, back in them days when we signed to that label, what attracted us somewhat the most was that Boogie Down Productions collectively was on that label.
Yeah, man.
And we knew they were hot. Biggest thing that was going on around that time was the Bridge and the Bridge is Over battle.
Right, yeah. Right.
South Legendary. Bridge,
yeah. But when we went up to the studio and we put our own style on what we were doing and we came back to the label and we delivered Doing Damage to them, they rushed the press on that. And it allowed the world to see that, there was a whole other defining part of music, a whole lot more that you can capture and make. We weren't, of course, the first group to turn around and sample. Got to give credit to a lot of the great groups that were sampling.
Right.
But when we went in to do our album, we definitely knew scratches, great lyrics, and tight loops and tight breaks. That's what we were going to put that album together with. And, bringing it back down to the Bronx, you know what I mean, to come out right after the legendary Boogie Down Productions.
Yeah.
For us, like I say, I personally feel like, hey, look, we did all right. Our album wasn't no slouch.
Yeah.
But I think that's what was attractive to B-Boy, because they had South Bronx and it was such a staple anthem. And then Strong Island was like such a staple anthem for another region. And it was like, KRS and them, Scott dies 6 months after we signed, KRS goes to Jive, and Strong Island is like, they got another anthem from another group, and I think that was the appealing thing to them. And they pushed it.
When you guys first wrote Strong Island and dropped it, was the intention that we would that it would stand the test of time and we'd be talking about it 38 years later, and that it would become like an actual, and I'll be rocking a t-shirt and,
there's no way Now we left the studio. I think I speak for all of us. When we left the studio after doing Strong Island, we knew we had something. There's no way that I'd be lying if I told you that I would be here 30 something years later and people would still be rocking it the way it is, and people would still be reciting our lyrics when some of the current hip hop people don't want to hear that stuff 6 months later. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? People
Yeah,
are still,
exactly.
and no disrespect, but I'm just saying,
Yeah, yeah.
they move on quick, but people and the fans have kept JVC alive. Like it has been a fan driven movement
A cult.
overseas. Yeah, almost like cult type movement. And once it blew over overseas, even when you didn't hear it here no more, it was they were killing it overseas. Like you know what I'm saying? And that's what kept our name alive all these years. So shout to the fans. The reason B and I are even here having this conversation in 2025 is because the fans. Without the fans, I wouldn't be here. I'd be doing something else right now. I wouldn't be. You wouldn't be talking to me about that record and the group and stuff.
So
Right
let me
on,
say
man.
this. Back then, right? There was no internet and all of that type of stuff. There was
Right.
Yeah,
no way
yeah.
to go ahead and carry a song unless the song carried itself through the streets. There was no podcast, no social media. So we had no idea where this was go. Back then, what we were happy to hear is our record playing on the radio. Again, big shout outs to Red Alert, who played it for the first time in
Yeah.
1982 on New Year's night, midnight. Um, Big shouts to him, but we would have never known. And it's amazing, as AJ said, it's amazing to see um, the way that the fans has embraced it and continue to. We get so many posts from people that say, you know what, this is a part of my everyday playlist.
Right,
This
yeah.
song changed my life. And the way we view it is we're very realistic about how we view it. We're not the biggest rap group that's out there. We didn't have the opportunities as most rap groups. We didn't have videos. Most of the time our label didn't have a budget. When we got to a point to where they had a budget, we didn't want to do videos anymore. So it's always, again, definitely
We
a
didn't even want to be on the
blessing.
label no more. So
Right, right. It's always definitely a blessing when the fans pick up your music, don't really have a great image of who you are, but they pick your music up and they say, hey, you know what? This is one of my faves. This is definitely hip. And they carried it, definitely, you know.
it's crazy because not ever having an official video, we did a public access show that Red Alert hosted, and that's what they play to this day. That's what Video Music Box plays to this day. That's
Right.
what everybody shares on the internet. That image of us from that public access show in early '88. But like
Yeah.
you said, to get the notoriety, to get the sound, we were big in places we didn't even know we were big in. Because I met artists, like a lot of named artists later, that tell me, "Yo, this used to rock in my neighborhood." We didn't even know how big it was in Cali like that. We didn't know
Yeah.
overseas how big it was. And shout to Wildman Steve for Long Island. He's
Yeah.
outside of Red Alert. He's the person who has played Strong Island the most and still plays it. So shout to him, BAU fan. Shout out to people like Lady B in Philly who held us down. It was just like a lot of people held us down. And
Dr.
I
Dre.
guess it was the sound. And, like you said, no internet. We had college radio. So this is the time when a
Jeff
lot of
O.
hip hop wasn't played on daytime radio yet. So you were played on those down the dial stations, the college stations, those underground stations, them shows that come on between 1 and 5 in the morning, like Barbito and Stretch. You
Yeah.
know, those that you had to wait up to hear our music, and people did, and that's what made it amazing. Like you can just turn on your radio station where they say hip hop lives in your neighborhood now, and you can hear the current hip hop all day long. Like we didn't have that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to seek it out back in the day. I remember just, growing up, like I said, next town over, Brentwood, we would get blend tapes and tapes that people would just make, and you hear it that way. That's how I think the first time I heard Strong Island back in the day, it became in our vernacular, something I say to, in everyday talk whenever I'm talking about Long Island to anybody. I'm like, yeah, I'm from Strong Island, and I always credit you guys with that, and that song, because that song stayed in my head, and it's just been, um, it puts pride behind the name too. You know what I'm saying? So if you're from, Long Island, you're from Strong Island. You say it with a little bit of like chutzpah. Like, yeah, I'm fucking Strong Island, man.
We did a lot of stuff before everybody. We did a lot of stuff before everybody. We had a little skit or two, just one or two, before De La and Prince Paul like took the skits to another level. We were spelling on our records before K Solo and DMX.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like we did a lot of things that a lot of people wasn't doing that are doing now, and a lot of people get credit for doing it first. But
you guys are true pioneers, man. You were ahead of it. Like, listen to Doing Damage again, just getting ready for this, just going through the record again, listen to it all. You do hear all of the, like this, like you said, the spelling type of stuff that got taken, took off from CI, K Solo and DMX and all that. And you guys were doing it first. And
here we go again. Take four. Let's try this one more. Wow! Hey, chap, I hear that Strong Island tune is really a #1 track out there in England.
Man, you know that jam body, pumping loud in the systems out there,
Yo, man, cause like Brutus, man, we could do this. Cause AJ Rok is in the house, and B-Luv is in the house, and Curt Cazal is in the house, and we are paired to schedule in England. But there's a news break, and
wait a minute, we have a news flash.
And coming up in the neighborhood when all these other groups are popping, EPMD, K Solo, Craig Mack, whoever, Keith Murray, what was the camaraderie like amongst all you groups? Because you guys were all pretty much lived blocks away from each other. What was the camaraderie like, and was there battles within, or what's the story behind the story?
It's interesting. People are always going to put two things against each other.
Right.
So us and EPMD came out the same studio. We came out 6 months apart. So some people some people used to mix the groups up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So they're 5 minutes away. So, you had that, like here you had like having Brand Nubians, like they were 5 minutes apart. They were both talking about who was the best.
Right.
Like you had that. We didn't really have beef back then. Like you're real beef with nobody. But, we had our few word plays. Someone said something. B might have answered them back in another record. We might have just addressed something. But they were just like subliminal. Nobody really called us out. We didn't really call nobody out. It wasn't,
right.
So we really didn't know. You didn't know that there was a little something going on between that. But we didn't have, it was in the state of competition as opposed to like beef and animosity, I think.
Right,
you know
right.
What I'm saying? Like everybody.
Like healthy competition.
Healthy competition, yeah. It was more that around our way. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure, everybody got haters. I'm sure there was the haters. You know what I'm saying? But
right.
It is what it is, though.
When it came to back then, when it came to all of these different groups coming out of Long Island and stuff like that, even the groups that were in our town, we were all cool and stuff like that. I think more so in my era, I went to school with maybe K Solo probably was when I was in maybe the 10th grade or something. He was
my age. Yeah, he was my age.
But Keith Murray and stuff like that was 2 years under me. Like he's around my sister's era.
Right. Yeah.
Age group 2-3 years under me. But we were cool pretty much with all of the groups. Even to today, we're still cool with all of the groups. The biggest thing with us back then, what we were working on as a group personally, is trying to get heard and played on daytime radio, which, throughout the years, we'd realized that it would never happen. The fans would always keep us underground.
Well, with the exception of K-Day. K-Day gave us love because that was the first one that was 24-hour rap. You know what I'm saying? So K-Day and Cali, I found out, gave us love. I didn't know then. I found out they gave us a lots of love back then.
Yeah. But back where we were from, listening for, back then, everybody did the same thing. You heard your record was going to play on the radio at a certain time. So you popped your cassette in and you sat down, try to get it on tape and stuff. But we were never going to play during the daytime. And the reason for that is because we typically at times don't write songs that are as conventional as other people's songs. Sometimes with us, it was no 3/16s, 3 choruses, and a bridge. It was lyrics straight through, or it was whatever we felt like on any given day. And
it might have been like a freestyle I had, a freestyle he had, and then a chorus. Literally, which was like a routine that we used to practice. But I want to say this, though. So you're looking at a time when R&B and disco are the music,
Right. Yeah.
and rap was not taken serious. So, even R&B artists were not considering rap as artists. Like, you know what I'm saying? As real as, those are not musicians, they just talking or whatever. So that's what was dominating the airwaves. So you only certain records like a Curtis Blow, Christmas Rap and the Breaks, or
Right.
Rapper's
Yeah. Yeah.
Delight, and a few Grandmaster Flash songs, and those got some daytime play, but and there's more, but it was like most rap did not get daytime play. It wasn't just us. It just was a time where we were trying to fight. We were fighting to get in the industry. We were fighting for our respect. We were fighting as hip hop as a whole. You know what I'm saying? So, that we were here to stay, because you got to figure everybody thought we was a fad. Oh, they'd never be around for too long. It was a fad.
Right. Yeah.
Then a lot of them people that called us fads, they doing collaborations now with rap artists to stay relevant. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, man. Like it's always amazing to me, when you look at the history of hip hop, how where it started, in the Bronx and and
Can
then
I say something
became
about
a
that? So,
phenomenon.
can I
Yeah.
say something? So the Bronx is the birthplace of hip hop, the recognized birthplace of hip hop. But understand, like I said, in Central Islip, it was going on. In Brooklyn, it was going on, but different DJ Flowers and all of them. And Queens, they had some stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? But it was just like the Bronx became, because of that whole hurt thing and the party, and they
Right.
identified that as the birthplace, the beginning day of hip hop and all that. But there was hip hop other places. You know what I'm saying? So it just, so I give them their credit, because that's what we collectively decided that was going to be the
Like that's
birthplace
the
of hip
birthday.
hop.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. You know what I'm
August
saying?
of yeah.
But it was going on other places, like I said, when I named those groups.
Right, right.
It was going on here in Mount Vernon,
The Bronx,
79 and all of that. So
the Bronx, the Bronx is definitely the birthplace of hip hop, but Long Island is also definitely the starting foundation of the sound system.
Right, yeah.
When I tell you, hip hop did start in the Bronx, they did their thing out there, but Long Island had sound systems.
Right, yeah.
And if you go back and you do the math, years when hip hop began, when cats was just like, cutting up break beats and, maybe rapping in a party before a lot of records and things like that, Long Island had big sound systems. And I mean, so we got credit for that. But even as the years went by, right, we weren't recognized for that. But that's
Right.
factual too.
And I think
Yeah.
the main reason probably wasn't recognized, like you guys said in the beginning, because we weren't a borough, and it just boils down to that, right? So we didn't get our flowers early on because we weren't a borough, which is crazy when you think
T
about it.
Money, T Money interviewed me recently, and he was from Westbury, Newcastle, and he said he always was told, by people in the city, like, since we didn't have the pissy elevators and we didn't have, projects and stuff, like we didn't have the grime in the hood. And he made a comment that I agree with. He said it wasn't until he went to Cali. If you ever go to Compton and Watts, there's houses. It's houses that look like where we live. There's their hood, it's hood areas there, but that's because there wasn't the projects, and because there wasn't a subway, and because those things that are considered the city,
Right.
there was hood in Long Island. We found out traveling, there's a hood everywhere. Like there's hood. You go to the wrong town in Alabama, you go around and mess around and find out. You know what I'm saying? So there's hoods
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
They don't look like a traditional projects though. They don't have traditional projects, but the hood is every marginalized, low income Black and brown community has a hood. They had their drugs. They had their crews / gangs, whatever they called it. They had all of those elements. We had that in Central Islip.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
We
had our one group that was terrorizing the neighborhood, Porcelino. They was terrorizing the neighborhood like Bloods and Crips. Like they was that. Like,
I was gonna say what we had out there, what people didn't realize about like all of Long Island, women in the city primarily were nurses and things of that nature. They had their careers. They decided to move their kids out to Long Island for a better situation. Only problem is within the interim of everything, their kids kept going back to the city and then coming back to Long Island.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, when you move somewhere, you bring that mentality with you.
Right. So yeah. So you're bringing the city with you. Yeah.
So,
You know, and we used to back then. We used to ride around and we used to go see what's going on. You know, looking for girls, all kind of different stuff. But you would always know, okay, well, like for instance, we're gonna ride through Brentwood.
Right.
We're gonna go through Brentwood because you know Brentwood has some nice looking girls back then. You know, so we're gonna ride through Brentwood, but we're not gonna go riding through Regis Park.
Right. Right.
So, you're gonna come to Central Islip to meet girls, but you're not gonna go to Carlton Park.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You know, so you know, like, and again, you know, a lot of those older guys and stuff like that, you know, they didn't just live like in a segregated bad neighborhood or whatever, like Carlton Park or Regis Park. You know, they were right on our blocks in new subdivisions, and so they came from pretty prestigious families.
Right.
You know, some of the biggest, one of the guys that lived on my block, who was it? Rodney Salas, big shout.
yes.
You know, one of the biggest hoods in town. His father owned a record store. So, we were all kids that came with opportunity, but you know, growing up, you know, they got together, they became friends, and all of a sudden, you know, we had situations going on in the suburbs, you know, and but you know, again, Long Island was always a great experience to grow up with. A lot of good fundamentals coming out of there and stuff like that, you know, and you know.
You had more opportunities sometimes where the city is congested with the buildings and everything on top of each other. We had more space.
Yeah.
So like he said, I was born in Mount Vernon, but my parents, when I was 7, you know, my dad had a good job at General Motors in Tarrytown. And when we moved in, got a house in Central Islip. My mother worked for one of the companies that make airlines, Grumman, one of those companies like that. She's Fairchild.
Oh, yeah.
It was the competition for Grumman. So, and they made good money. And so, yes, we lived in houses and where we lived in the new development area, the American Estates, the newer part of Central Islip at the time. A lot of we had houses with cars and garage, and both parents had a car, and a lot of that, but you still had those even in that element that didn't have. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
It's just like it was crazy. So, but we had more opportunities. I got exposed to a lot of things that I might not have been exposed to had I just like say grew up in just Mount Vernon. And like, you know, we traveled. You know, you had to have a car to get around, kind of sort of like B always had a car. You know what I'm saying? Curt had a car. You know, so a couple of our friends had cars. So we was always in all the different cities, all the different areas, Wyandanch, Amityville, Deer Park, wherever. We in Westchester. We in the Bronx. I'm riding down to Brooklyn with B all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All over the place. You know what I'm saying? So, and then you know, but it was good even in my early adulthood. It was good to have the hustle and bustle of the city, but to become home and get a break from it.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that really was a cool, and some parts of Westchester like that. Some parts of Westchester's like that. You're close enough, we're closer to the city, but then you come home. You know what I'm saying? You got that little break. You know, you get a little, you know, different environment, you know, which is healthy for you.
Yeah, and that's what's good about being an artist on Long Island, whether it's, you know, a hip hop game or whatever, is that there is so eclectic. There's so much going on. Like you said, you can go from you know, listening to, you know, Run DMC to Billy Joel, all within, you know, two houses over. You know what I'm saying? It's a mix, and you get a little bit of everything, and the diversity I know in Brentwood and CI just the same, pretty much. So I think that adds to it too, and like I said too, people sleep on it. They forget that Queens and Brooklyn are part of Long Island.
So I said this in several interviews. In Central Islip, in elementary school, when we were in school and we had that big book and it showed us the map of Long Island, we were taught that Long Island had 4 counties: Suffolk, Nassau, Queens, and Kings. You might get punched in your face telling somebody from Brooklyn they're from Long Island. But where is Long Island? Where is Long Island University? In Brooklyn.
Right, yeah.
Right. It's the island. It's still the island. Even though they're boroughs of the city, it's part of the body, the Long Island, that body. And at some point now you just see Nassau and Suffolk on that map. You don't see Queens and Kings, but that's not how it was in the 70s when we grew up. That's what they taught in the schools, that we had four
Yeah.
counties. Yeah.
You know, when we were when we came out with Strong Island, we were going on to about we were looking for new management at the time. And I remember when we would go into the city and we would meet up with different management companies, and they would sit there and listen to our music and they'd be like, this is dope, but we just don't know how to market this because y'all ain't from the city. Like A was saying, you know, if we didn't grow up with, like, you know what I'm saying, a store on every corner or potholes or, you know.
We didn't have the tail of, see, record companies, when they started getting into it and you had a lot of the artists from the city, they had these stories, these tales of street life and growing up hard and all of that. And, you know, that was part of the makeup of marketing them.
Right.
And because our parents, these parents moved from Brooklyn, my parents moved from Mount Vernon, many people in my block were from Queens and Harlem and everywhere else. Our parents moved out there. We didn't necessarily have that story. And that was the narrative that labels were pushing to be a real rapper. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how we're going to market you. You know, it's street, it's hood, it's gangster, whatever the word was at the time. And you had rough edge music because nobody ever questioned the thoroughness of a rock hymn. No one has ever questioned the thoroughness. And the side of town, centralized where Keith Murray from, that is the hood.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's straight the hood. Like, you don't go there if you don't know. So a lot of people came from Brooklyn and came out there thinking, oh, this is the country, and found out the hard way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's gonna take your people an hour, some minutes on the Long Island Railroad to come get you. Like, it's you know what I'm saying? You can't. But that's what made it hard for the marketing of it, because they were learning, they were just trying to take advantage of hip hop. They realized they could make money. You know, like that story with Sylvia Rome when she said she heard them, she went to a party. She was like, "Oh, I like that. Like, we got to do that." Like, they were trying to figure out how they could make money, and that rough edge and street, all that was the edge.
Well, that's what's tough. The tough part about being pioneers, like you guys were, you know, kind of coming up and blazing the trail, is that you got to take those hits, take the, you know, and when the record labels don't understand that hip hop is bigger than the inner cities, and then, you know, you guys kind of paved the way, you know, for EPMD or with the next ones that came out. You know, you paved the way
like
for De La Soul. Yeah,
EPMD was like, we were like months apart. They actually dropped first, but we were like months apart.
right.
But De La, you know, came after us, and several other groups came after us, and it was a long, like again, De La showed that you didn't have to. De La is the epitome of going against the grain of the hood. Like, they were talking about potholes in their lawn. Like, what the hell? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, a lot of city records, you know, talking about the subway and gangs and crime, you know, they were talking about potholes. They were like hip hop hippies, or you know what I'm saying? They were like,
they started a whole subgenre. Yeah,
right. Like, they were like kids that went to school and got bullied a little bit or something. Like, that was and they changed the way people saw hip hop. I mean, but again, on the gangster, on the, I do want to say, yo, Public Enemy ran with a crew like the 9-8 Posse. Come around Terrace Avenue, come around Public Enemy, trying to with the wrong intentions. You would have got your feelings hurt back then. You'd have got hurt. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, it was what made us different too. It was the big crews like PE. I mean, PE had that whole 9-8 Posse. Like, you know, people had crew. Look at BDP. Like, remember, like, everyone had like these large crews, and it was the three of us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It was just the three of us going everywhere. Like, there was no. A couple of times friends came with us. A couple of times B's older cousin Eon and them bodyguarded and stuff for us. They was from Brooklyn, but most of the time you saw the three of us. You saw the three of us. Like, you didn't see a huge crew or posse, and that also was different because everybody had a big posse back then too.
Right.
It was the record. The record Strong Island gave us a lot of love from. We necessarily never really needed like bodyguards or security and stuff. Like we had a relationship with Public Enemy. I remember one time that I asked Chuck. I said, how come you never sued us for using that term Strong Island? And he looked at me and said, look, he said Long Island needed that.
Yeah.
So we've always gotten the support from a lot of the bigger crews. And when we pulled up places, a lot of those crews seen us like in line as hip hop bands and stuff, and they pulled us in. And we've had privilege at times to like stand on stage or looking at another group doing their show. And, so the love was always there. It's not till the later years that you start to have conversations with folks and they say, hey, you don't even understand how much you did for hip hop and stuff like that. And they tell you, hey, you know what? Where my career went is because you guys weren't afraid to take a chance and y'all were from Long Island. Because back then, as much as labels wanted to say Brooklyn, Bronx, Manhattan, and the Queens was the major entities of things, when Strong Island came out, really at that time, labels started coming to Long Island looking for groups.
Yeah.
And taking chances on groups. When you look at Long Island and you look at the length of it, what do they say, about 117, 1800?
It lives up to its name. It is a long island.
It's like a 3-hour drive, I think, from Queens all the way to Montauk or something like
that. There's no doubt that we control the golden age of hip hop in Long Island. Because every exit off the southern state had a hot rap group coming from that exit.
Yeah, man. And you guys were like the first ones to rep Strong Island proudly and put us on your back, so to speak. You wore it on your sleeve in a time when it was about the boroughs. So you got to get kudos for that. Got to get flowers for that, props for that, because to me that was big as pioneers too, because you didn't know what was the outcome was going to be or how the reaction.
We were making a lot of stuff up as we go along. And I want to say one more thing about PE. So we sampled Strong Island from Strong Island, where I got a wildin', without permission of the hits of the Bomb Squad, without permission to Chuck, without permission to Public Enemy. And then their album comes out afterwards. Their next album is, I think, their second album. And my neighbor behind me, Chris Brown, he's like, yo, Public Enemy shouted y'all out. And the thank yous and the credits and the thank yous, he says, thank you, JVC Strong Island Force. Like he shouted us out. We sampled him. And
yeah.
I always want to give Chuck credit because I've seen him say our name in places that we weren't, like a Rolling Stone article or a MTV interview or something, places we weren't, our music wasn't. And he would say something like, we don't get to do that, we deserve, or something like that. Just that little thing like that co-signing from him was crazy.
That says a lot about him too. Yeah.
So I always give Chuck a lot of love, like, you know what I'm saying? And, for what he did, you know what I'm saying? Educating people and, that whole, what he did with that sound was crazy. What they did with the whole.
That stretches on, because what's funny is, we remember the day that we seen when they shouted us out on their album cover. And then years later, I remember like a couple years back when Funkmaster Flex and Red Alert did an interview together. And Flex said, I can't remember the name of the group, but there was a group and he was talking about us. And he was like, that's the first group that ever said my name on their record. So that feeling, man, never went away, man. And I want to say, man, like back then, it was nothing like, buying hip hop music was great because you had your album cover and then you had your sleeve, you had your credits.
Yeah.
Now what they got going on, you don't get as much and stuff like that.
But you miss that for the music fan, the real music fan. You miss that.
Right.
That's missing the credits where you can look at who sampled what, or you can look at the different names of everything, and you can look at you can't read that no more. You can't. I mean, I'm sure you can Google it, but you know what I'm saying? Like you had to
search it out.
It doesn't matter how big it doesn't matter how big someone gets. They always appreciate that recognition.
Right on. Right
Yo,
on.
B, real quick. So I talked to Chili Q from BLS the other day. He also said we were the first person to ever shout him out. And that's when he was like the young pup at BLS. Like he wasn't even a known DJ. He was like the up and coming DJ. And he said, "Yo, y'all are the first ones that ever shout me out on a record." He tells me that every time I speak to him online. Like, so shout to DJ Q, Chili Q, the
That's
youngest
nice.
DJ in charge. Yeah,
We
Right
did
on.
back then. Back then, we did a promo for Red Alert, and
that was different too.
the recognition that we intended on giving Red Alert, like making his promo like a 2-minute song. That was our way of showing our appreciation for him breaking that record as hard as he did while we were from Long Island.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody else's shout outs is like, "Yo, my name is so and so. I'm from such and such. You listen to the cool DJ Red Alert." We had a 2-minute. We went in the studio. We rocked the record for him, like a little 2-minute record. And what's funny, between our second and third, first and second album, when we were switching labels, he was playing that every week, and people was like, "Yo, I heard your new record," and people thought that was like a record. People were looking for that record. You know what I'm saying? And they kept
Right.
But between B-Boy and Idlers, when we was trying to figure it all out, get off B-Boy and get on a new label and all that Red Alert promo played every Saturday. Strong Island played a little bit, but that played every Saturday and kept us going. Red kept us going.
And we are the JVC Force, straight from. And we are here tonight to pay tribute to cool DJ Red Alert on 98.7 Kiss FM. So Curt Cazal.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys it was popping Strong Island. It was an anthem. And then, like, in hindsight, do you guys kind of regret not doing music videos and getting in the game that way and getting on Yo MTV Raps? Like, was that the direction you wanted?
The only thing, if you're gonna say miss, is when they have those quote unquote documentaries, and when they talk about the history of hip hop, when they pull out stuff, they pull out the videos. When they talk about certain artists, they play their videos, and we don't get mentioned even in some documentaries about Long Island because there's no video for them to show. And so I don't think it's a thing that we regret or anything, but it's an acknowledgement of that you know what I'm saying. Sometimes because when you see them things on they play pieces of people's videos or
Right,
maybe
yeah.
a live performance or something or whatever. We don't have that for you to add. So a lot of times you have the sound of our music that shows up in some of these documentaries, but you don't have the like a video aspect.
We spent a lot of time together. And it could have naturally been like that. Like I said, I met Curt when I was around 4 years old, going to Cordello or whatever like that. I became friends with AJ when I was like 5 or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah, he was 5 and I was 7, and we lived around the corner from each other.
By the time we started making music, our norm was always to be together. We ate as a crew, we partied as a crew, we hung out as a crew, we rode around different boroughs as a crew. The thing about it is that we would always be sitting down working on something. It was important to us that we always stayed abreast of what was going on. Like I said, Long Island, the competition was definitely against stiffening up. So it was always important that we sat down and we always had something to try to go to the next level. There was times, unfortunately, like I said, that, we had to leave a label and go to another label. And, we would have to make sure that while we were ready to go to that label, we had something hot to present or, but like I said, man, it wasn't easy at all. But, we spent a lot of time together. So I don't think that wanting to do videos and things like that was as relevant back then to us as having a hot record or having
a hot record, being on the radio, getting that respect from our peers, having a song that resonated with everybody. You know what's crazy about switching labels? So I saw an interview with Dre and rest in peace, Dr. Dre and Ed Lover, and they talked about when they first did Yo MTV Raps, they basically gave them cameras and said, do a show.
Right. Yeah.
And then once it got known, then all these all these other people started getting on. When we first started, on B-Boy, it was like, go do a record. By the time we had got to Idlers wanted to have more input in our records, was something we wasn't used to. And then when we got to Big Beat, like the A&R wanted to critique, it was just like, it was more say they wanted to pick a producer for us and stuff. And we had never had that. We were always like self-contained. And it was like, as our name got bigger, everybody wanted to be a part of it and do something. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of crazy. That was one of the transition points that was kind of rough. Like,
with us moving from B-Boy over to Idlers, the situation for us was supposed to be lucrative doing that. What ended up happening was Idlers came up on a big house record by the Jungle Brothers, Girl Our House.
Girl Our House.
Oh, yeah,
so immediately at that point in time, it went from being a Brooklyn hip-hop label to a label that was chasing another house hit. Now, Intro to Dance, which is like the first song on the Force.E album, we had already had that recorded.
That was for the shows.
Yeah,
that was supposed to be a record.
To be, the first single or whatever it was. We used it at a couple of shows to introduce ourselves. But
shadows, you see torsos at your back door. A group of 3, not 4. Could it be? To hold your head down, it's not E.T. It's the A.Y.E. and the B-double-E. C.A.Z. cut the beat up for me.
The thing about it is that being on the second label, we made a lot of the music that we wanted to make.
And they had us making house music, but they had us making hip hop music.
Yeah, the influence of the label was to, we need another group that's gonna have a nice hit like Girl Our House shit.
Right.
And,
yeah.
Again, it wasn't particularly like our style of what we wanted to do. We were always down to experiment because, of course, anybody from Long Island knew how the great Stony Brook parties rock.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Right. So, listening to house music and growing up on house music, it wasn't too terrible to try to make a couple of house joints, but
that wasn't our core. That wasn't our. That wasn't what. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that wasn't who you guys were. Like
they had us take a record that we did, a hip hop record, and change it to a hip house record. Change the title, change the beat, same rhymes, and make it a hip house record. Which we did, and we experimented. I listened to house music a little bit, probably less than B and Curt and them, but it wasn't my forte. I was into, growing up in Mount Vernon and on the borderline of the Bronx. Like, that wasn't, I love Girl Our House. I love that.
Yeah.
But for me, I wasn't that. You know what I'm saying? So
right. Yeah. You guys.
It was awkward for me, particularly. We like I said, we experimented with a lot of things and we did it, but it just wasn't. I didn't feel as comfortable as like some of the more hip hop sounding records that we did with beats and loops and scratches and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are more hip hop and not so much like house style. Yeah.
Right. So but I mean, we had R&B loops too, though. So we had the R&B loops and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But still had the hip hop sound to it.
Right. And you guys had such a great chemistry. You guys bounce off each other. The rhymes was just like effortless. It was just the way you guys flowed was just, you know,
that's
smooth.
crazy. That's crazy because my parents got a house in Central Islip when I was 7. My parents get divorced when I'm 11 or 12. I'm a rebel without a pause or cause. My mother sends me back to Mount Vernon to my dad's house. So after high school, I ended up coming back to Long Island, and everybody on the block, Mike Walls, Rodney Norman, all of my fellas that, you know, my next door neighbor, they telling me about B-Luv and Curt doing their things when I was gone, and that they were starting to make a name for themselves. So they had a house party that they were doing that I was, you know, I really didn't feel I just got back to Central Islip for the weekend or so. I wasn't trying to be going out really. They was like, nah, you coming out. Mike insisted I come out. So they dragged me to the party, and then it was like, yo, let A get on the mic. So I get on the mic and I say whatever I say. But it's B's set, so B's like, he's not gonna let nobody get a lot of love, and he don't get love. So he's going back. So we're not battling, but we're going rhymes back and forth. The end of the night, they say we sound good together, and then we meet up in Kurt's garage like a day or two later. They already had JVC. I become a new member. Now we're working on routines and talking about demos and stuff like that. Like, so, and that's literally like how it happened. Like,
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
credit to Mike Walls for dragging me to the party that I wasn't really trying to go to. It was in Brentwood too. It was on the Brentwood side of Islip Avenue. It was on one of the Brentwood streets.
Oh yeah.
Because doing the party for some girl. Yeah, some girl's birthday party.
No, that party was in CI. That party was at
Billy
Billy
D's.
CI? It was at Billy D's house over on Lee.
Okay.
On the other side of Lee.
Okay, yeah, it was down that way. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. We stopped. I think we stopped in Brentwood before we dipped in Brentwood, then came back. I think that's what it was. But
yeah, it was right across the street. Yeah, right.
Right. And I lived on Branch. I lived the block past. I lived just a block or two from Islip Avenue, where they had the bar to Taste the Honey. I lived on that corner that led up to that. So nice. I saw my yard. I go to my house. I come out my house. I see Islip Avenue right there.
Yeah.
I see across the street. That's Brentwood right there. So yeah.
Right on there. We're right next door, man. We all shared like was Charlie's hot dog truck. I don't know if you remember that hot dog truck.
Actually, I do remember that name.
Yeah, right. So I think it was Spur Drive, and
yeah, I actually do remember that. Wow.
There you go. So now,
what would you do if you hear the rhyme and you like it too? You bite it, write it, and recite it, take it home and review it. Because you feel it subsequently legit, that ain't it. Because the issue at hand is that you stupid rhymes belonging to the Force MCs and the key to your success is with routines like these. Boy, you keep on fronting when it come battle time. We will excel, take you through hell, beat you so bad they call it a crime.
You guys are still, kind of, the song's relevant, still popping. You got, your AJ, you're writing books, and you got all these things happening. Have you done any reunion shows? Are you thinking about doing reunion shows and get on any of these tours? You see a lot of these kind of reunion tours popping around all over.
So the easy answer to that is we get asked to do. Like, people mention, I want y'all to perform, but then there's nothing behind it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not. There have been no serious offers. Like, there's just been like, people have talked about it. If there's a serious offer, I can't speak for B. I think we would get together and do a little something. You know what I'm saying? And he's in Georgia and I'm in New York, so they got to bring him up here or bring me down there or something. But
right.
Yeah. But we haven't had serious requests. Just talk. You know what I'm saying? So,
I would love to do somehow produce a show that's the Strong Island show, right? And it's obviously JVC Force, but then you have all these Long Island legends on the bill as well. I think that would be awesome, man. If you can get, I think De La, still out there touring, and they just put out some new stuff. And then you got, Parrish could do something, maybe EBMD, maybe you could bring some of these guys back, and then it's all JVC Force Strong Island presents.
Yeah.
I think if he was able to pull that together, we down. But good luck putting that together, though.
That's my dream. I'm going to see if I can make that happen. You'll be my first call if I start that starts to pop.
Go ahead, B. B was saying something.
I think as the future comes about, you'll probably see some of these things that you're wanting to happen. I will tell you, we do live again. I live in Atlanta. A lives up there in Mount Vernon. But we do try to keep our songs and our routines and stuff intact. So, there's
we still be doing our routines, and we still be having our little practice session. Sometimes it got to be over Zoom, as opposed to me walking around the corner of his house or him walking around the corner to my basement. You know what I'm saying? It's
If we are together, where there's times that we've been together both in New York and Atlanta. We will go ahead and do something. We notice it would generate a lot of hits real fast, like thousands of hits real fast.
Yeah.
So, we try to stay in condition, but I think mostly throughout the years, I think one thing that we've recognized is there's different ways that you have to try to preserve a legacy. And sometimes to preserve it, unfortunately, you have to stay away. Staying away.
Sometimes you got to say no. Yeah.
Right.
No, but stay. We've been fortunate to not really sometimes be recognized in certain mixes, because we realize, like, sometimes when folks talk to us about the possibilities of things, we have worth still.
Right.
We haven't been seen. So, the day that we will come back and be seen, somebody is probably going to put it together for a pretty nice sum.
Right.
So
right.
the bottom line is, we ready. If somebody, there's a promoter out there that's supposed to make a serious offer, holla, we ready. We stay, we still be, going over it, you know what I'm saying? We still know the songs. We still got a little show that we know we could do a little something. So if somebody was serious and wanted to make an offer, we ready. That's the bottom line. So,
but for the most part though, throughout the years, we've had fun with this. We never really looked at it as, oh yeah, what I'm saying, like, we're the biggest thing out, this, that, and the third. We were always just happy to play on the radio, have that song, and we stayed humble with it. You know what I mean? And we're gonna continue to do so. But again, we stay ready. We stay about 10, 12 songs in that we can hit a stage and actively perform. We're still in all right shape. Like I said, our friendship's been 51 years, 52 years now, something like that.
Yeah, 7. I just turned 59.
You can only imagine how much practice time we done got in on that 50-something years. Like right now, in fact, we make it a regular routine to practice, like on Saturdays, just to stay in the swing of things. So, we'll always be ready.
There's a couple of times we got together, we did a little live, and you know what I'm saying? We might have just did some lyrics and some freestyles, you know what I'm saying, on Facebook Live or something, just for the, to just generate, just to stay relevant, to let everybody know, it's still sharp. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's still
keep the tools sharp.
It still can happen. So don't get it twisted. Just because you just out of sight, out of mind. Don't think because you didn't see us, you can't see us. Don't think that, if the phone rings, we ready. You know what I'm saying? So,
I will tell you that we do plan on doing a Facebook Live show. Whatever you want to compare it to, a tiny desk or whatever the deal is. But,
right.
We might have some fun, do a little something. Still won't be like an all-out show though, but it might be enough for you to see, to get a little taste, to keep the appetite wet. To be like
that would be dope. When are you gonna do that?
I don't know. Just you never know. When we do, you're in the loop. You're connected, so you'll see.
Man, I love it.
You'll see a link. You'll see when we promote it, and you'll see it.
Yeah. We do things from time to time, and mostly what we do now, appreciating, like, the bass. Somebody may tell us, like, hey, you guys should go live and sing a couple songs. We tell them, hey, you know what? Give us about 15 minutes. We get it together. You know what I'm saying? A gets a Grey Goose. You know what I'm saying? I get my tequila, and we do this. And the last time I believe that we did it was about 3 years ago, man, and it lasted like 20 minutes. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, we did something in your house, in the garage area, in your dad's garage. He was in there. He was in there having fun. We were performing and talking to the people, and people was talking to us, and we was talking and acknowledging everybody, and just having fun, laughing and joking. We had our boys with us. We had a few drinks. We were just having fun.
The time before that we did it down here in Atlanta. So again, we've done it in different states. Like, a lot of times when we get together, people will say, hey, you know what? Wow, y'all should sing a couple of y'all songs. And once we start, we just keep going, and so I mean, we plan on doing it again around the month of June or so, because I think
Strong Island's always ready to go. So
there you go.
Strong
Island, man.
I'll be down in New York around sometime around then. So I mean, at that point in time when we're together, saying we'll definitely probably pop something off for the fans.
Right. Just like I said, just a little taste, just a little whet the appetite. What I want to say though, which is very important. So even though I joined the group the way I did at the time I did, I knew Bill. Like I said, my parents moved me. I was 7, and he lived around the corner, and he was 5. And if there was no hip hop, we still would have been like brothers. We still would have been hanging. He's my daughter's godfather. Like, you know what I'm saying? We still, like, I was at his house as much as I was at my house. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was
Right.
never
Yeah.
nothing to see me walking in the front door. His parents, it was never odd to see me just walking in the front door. You know
Right.
what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
You
Both of
know,
us have younger sisters, and they definitely
yeah.
used to turn
And our
around
sister, yeah. That's
while we
actually
were
how we
walking.
met. His sister
Yeah.
used to ride her little bike or whatever around the corner. I guess she didn't come back in time, and his mother would send him, "Go get your sister," and she'd be at, and that's kind of how we met, actually, like literally,
Yeah.
like yeah.
That's awesome, man.
But that's
She
a
would go
long
see my
time.
little sister.
You gotta
Yeah.
remember. You gotta remember, man. We met each other right when the blocks barely had houses on.
Oh yeah, the neighborhood,
Mm.
like half the blocks still had like it
Like
was
just a
just
few
dirt. Like
houses
you know what I'm
on.
Oh, they're
saying? We
just
would
building
like
them up. Yeah.
we'd have
Dirt
like dirt
roads.
bomb fights and stuff. Like we were just like, like it was like crazy. And then you rode your bike up and down the little dirt hills and everything. And you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? That's fun when you could actually go in your neighborhood and your parents, you were going all day and your parents wasn't worried about you. Like, you know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? Like
Yeah.
you was
Those.
nowhere near home. You was all across town, everything. You had to be back by a certain time. But you know, you could literally go all through the neighborhood and nobody, your parents wasn't, they never, just go outside and play. Like, you know, they was like,
Yep.
you know,
Those are the best times to grow up, man. We grew up in the best time period, I think, in the 80s and 90s, before the phones, before technology kind of got into it.
I'm happy that I grew up in the pre-social media era.
Yeah, for
Because
real.
as somebody who was a rebel without a pause or a cause, you can say something happened, but you ain't got no proof. Like
Right.
so, these kids make one mistake now, and this is on the internet forever.
For
Like,
life.
yo,
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Look,
So
look,
I do appreciate that aspect of being pre-internet. So
Yes.
we grew up on hose water.
oh yeah,
Right.
yeah, you post the water hose. So they had
Yeah,
you know
exactly. Drinking from the hose. Yeah.
right? The city you saw they with the fire hydrants. We had the water hoses.
Yeah.
So while you ride your bike, you go to your friend's house. They turn
Yep.
on the hose. You be in the driveway drinking from the water hose. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You better have drank that hose water because once you went in the house, you was in for the night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, man. That's it.
So,
Those are
yeah,
some good times, man.
it really
And,
was.
and now this was awesome having you both on the show, man. JVC Force has been like I said, in Strong Island has been a part of me since I was a kid, junior high school. Listened to you guys on blend tapes, and then just staying Strong Island to this day, man. Like repping the shirt and all this, and so. Thanks so much for doing this, man. If you guys do anything in June, let me know, man. I'll be out there. I'll come out and represent and film it and all that stuff. But
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Like I said, stay tuned. You never know what's gonna happen. We stay ready. So you never know what's gonna happen. Ain't no announcements or nothing, but you just never know what's gonna happen.
right on,
You
man.
know, yeah, 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 yeah.
Good times. So is there any thing you guys want to plug anywhere people could find you, follow you? I know you got some books and things like that. Just tell everybody where they could connect with you guys and find all your stuff.
So real quick, as far as me, um, I got a newspaper called Black Westchester. I fight for those who can't fight for themselves, and the voice of the voiceless and all that stuff, and the community thing. And I did a series of books in Westchester, and I say that to say that's why the title of my book. We got our own thing. A look at hip hop from the 914. It was the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and Pete Rock had a tweet that he was upset that in many of the 50th anniversary celebrations, it didn't include Heavy D, who's his older cousin.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was like, and then I see Jermaine Dupri talk about wasn't enough Atlanta being celebrated, and seen the West Coast saying. So I could have did what everybody else did, but being that what I do, I document stuff. I decided to document the history of hip hop in Westchester, and being in high school. So my cousin Richard Dixon is Pooba's cousin, so I got to see Pooba and Who in the parks way before y'all heard of him. You know
Wow,
what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
I was in a group called Nasty Boys with my boy Bushrod and Sean. It was like 9 MCs and 3 DJs. The 3 DJs was Easy Lee, who ended up being FS and Effects, and Mary J's tour DJ. Eddie F before Heavy D. We was doing that same
Wow,
basement. They were doing routines. We were doing routines in that before that. And
wow.
a dude named Phase One, who ended up being the DJ for Money Earning Crew, the next crew after us on B-Boy.
Wow.
So I celebrate the way I talk about the history of Long Island. I celebrate the history and the importance of history from Westchester. And yes, the answer to the most important question everybody asks, There will be some sort of 516 book. It will probably be based on Strong Island, the song, and what it meant to the, and have everybody in the area that wants to talk about it, all the artists talk about it, and just that time. You know what I'm saying? You know,
Right.
I haven't thought
Yeah.
about it. It'll probably be more that than like the history of hip hop, because Long Island is too long of it. But you can get the book on Amazon, or if you see my name where I'm at, that's my social media, Mr. AJ Woodson. That's my Gmail, Mr. AJ Woodson at Gmail. You can DM me, the autograph copy, and I'll mail it to you. So that's
Nice.
what I'm working on. And again, still, you know, just working on the lyrics, and I'm trying to get more into like screenplays and documentaries and stuff like that. So we'll
Nice.
see. I mean, nothing to report yet. It's just, I'm always writing something. So
Right on.
you
And
know,
and I'll put the links to all these stuff in the description as well.
and B's been doing a lot of parties and stuff. Like he's been DJing heavy. He's been the main structure, and especially in the Georgia area. But I think like even outside of the Georgia area, he could tell you more about that. But he's been really, like, when I went down there, when I moved, because I moved down there like 2002, when I was there to 2014 when I came back, and I seen him get busy, and the following that he had, the network that he built musically down there. And shout to all the people that run with him. I'm not gonna call a bunch of names and forget somebody, but shout to everybody that runs with B-Luv. Shout to I introduced him to one of my best friends, Vance Wright, who was the DJ from Slick Rick, and the producer. Me and him worked on some stuff, and then he moved down there, and he happened to live in the same town B-Luv lived in. I introduced them. They like brothers now. I don't even. They be at each other's house. They be doing stuff. They like brothers now. Like,
That's
yeah.
awesome. I lived in Atlanta for about 6 years, working with the Falcons for a little bit, and
Where were
then
you? Where were you at? What part of?
I lived in Buford, so I drove in. Yeah, so I
Okay,
would
I
drive
was I
in.
was in Cobb County. I was in Marietta.
Okay, yeah, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but I connected over there with YZ. You know YZ from Jersey,
Yes,
and
yes.
Daddy-O from Stet.
I interviewed I got with Daddy a few times down there.
Well, yeah,
I got an
shout out.
interview I did with him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. I love that dude. And yeah, so we connected out there with those guys, and I'm telling you, Atlanta has such a thriving hip hop scene. It felt like Long Island back in the day. Like there's so much great hip hop popping along over there. It kind of reminded me, like I was like, man, I grew up in Long Island during this heyday with all with all these great rappers. And now I'm in Atlanta and all these great rappers
And
everywhere.
you can see a great concert in the park. Like you just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a park concert, or I seen Kane perform to a live band at some venue. You just see like everybody comes to Atlanta. Like
yeah,
that's that mecca.
yeah.
But I
Atlanta
want to
rocks.
be to talk about what he's doing. I know I talked about the DJ thing, but I kind of took his thunder. Like,
Now you straight. Like I said, I do a lot of DJing in the Atlanta area. I do take it out of state also. From Atlanta, I've come all the way back up north to do it. Been through Carolinas, been through Tennessee, headed down to Florida to do it. My company is called the Get Down Lounge. It's been here. It's been established about probably 20 something years now. About 2 years after I got here, I started to build it up and stuff, and it started to happen. So I pretty much, I've been doing a lot of that. There's times of the year, of course, that I don't try to DJ and stuff like that. But for the most part, I enjoy doing it. I was a DJ before I was an MC. So I picked back up on that. You can reach me pretty much at on most major platforms as B-Luv of JVC Force. But like I say, it's what we've been doing. I think with both of us, based on what we do, it's fulfilling in life. It's cool. We do what we love to do, and that's what it is. That's
Yeah,
what it is.
it's
And I
got to
want
be
shout
to
to
cool.
everybody! Shout to everybody who represents and has ever represented Strong Island.
Yeah,
Shout to everyone. The names you know, the names you don't know, the underground groups you never heard of that are holding it down. There's some young cats that's doing it now. There's a young girl in CI. She actually redid Strong Island. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like like a little underground mix. She got her own mix of Strong Island that she did, and so shout to everybody that's holding it down. Shout to all those who paved the way for us.
I want to give a super duper shout out to the company that I work with merchandise wise, Slangsmith.
Oh yes, I got the shirt. There you go. There's the logo right there, Slangsmith.
Nice.
They've done both styles of JVC shirts.
Oh yeah, that's dope.
Both
Yeah,
drive.
this one is the album cover. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you got that picture was taken on Spur Drive, right?
Yeah, we were driving around, found a beat up car that was, I guess, stalled. I guess we did a little more damage to it, stomping on it. Then we just jumped on it and took a whole bunch of pictures, and one of them ended up being the album cover.
That's awesome. I love that, man. It doesn't get more Long Island than that, I tell you.
Yeah. This shirt here is the
dry fit joint.
Yeah,
that's dope.
Of the Doing Damage album. So I mean, and again, big shouts to Slangsmith because
yes.
There's about 6 or 7 different colors of the shirt that AJ is wearing. This dry fit here is one of the more signature shirts. But again, big shouts out to them because they allowed us to come in, and big shouts out to Heath Alston that he allowed us.
Heath, yes, from Central Islip, yes.
And work our product and stuff like that, and get something to the world at a time that the labels wasn't giving us anything. So we definitely as a group came back to try to get things into the fans' hands that we weren't able to put into their hands when we were out. So
you might expect to see some merchandising soon. Sometime later this year or something. That's something that's talked about. Is not planned yet, but you might see some merchandising. And, when it's ready, we'll let you know, and we'll let you know where to get it.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Just follow us on social media. We got a lot of things going on individually and collectively. And that's all I can say. Thank you for your time, for reaching out to me. Thank you for reaching out to me.
What's your size? What's your size, Don?
I'm a 2XL now. I'm trying to be an XL, but I'm a 2XL.
All right, man. I try to take a look at what's in the warehouse, and we'll try to go ahead and get you something over.
Dude, I will represent. I will rock that for sure, man. That's awesome.
These shirts are like now they're pretty much about 3 to 4 years old now.
Right. Like the one we got on, the one I got on, this was definitely a collector's.
I can't make any serious promises of what's there.
Right.
Definitely, we'll try to go ahead and get something over to you, man.
Oh man!
If he tells me he got something, I'll hit you, get the address and mail it to you. So
I appreciate you guys, man. This is awesome. This was so cool talking to you guys, man. It's like I said, it's like since I was a kid, man. So I really, it's awesome opportunity for me too. So thank you guys for taking the time and doing this and telling the stories of your whole career. And you guys are right across the street, man. CI, I'm Brentwood. This is cool to see.
Where can people see your show? Is it like a YouTube thing, or where do you?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. So it's called DONversations. It's on YouTube. It's Governor's Comedy Club in Levittown.
Yes,
so
yes.
There's a podcast studio in the back. So it's based out of that podcast studio. So it runs on Governor's Comedy Club. But also, if you go on DONversations on Instagram, I'll put clips on this. And I'll tag you guys on it and stuff like that. Like I'll chop this up into clips and put some of those out there. And I'll definitely tag you guys on it. And I'll hashtag it Strong Island, all that good stuff. So
no doubt.
But yeah, man.
Big shout out to Brentwood. Big shouts out to Central Islip. Big shouts out to Suffolk Avenue, which is like the vein going through both.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, that right there at Suffolk Avenue, that Dunkin' Donuts right there at Suffolk Avenue and Islip Avenue, 111.
Yeah, that was around the corner for me too.
And that diner right at the corner there. Yeah.
Man, what happened?
I remember that diner. That diner, that's years ago. That diner.
Yeah, man.
What happened to the superhero?
Yeah, man. I love that superhero spot. That they took that down. That's gone now, man.
Now the hot dog spot you were talking about on Spur Drive. It's still existing. They put it somewhere else now. I think they put it like in Comac or something like that.
Oh no way! It was Charlie's Hot Dogs or something like that. Yeah.
I think it's like in Comac or something now, man. But I remember the superhero, and man.
Also, shout out to WBAU. Adelphi University, WRHU, I think that's Hofstra University. Jeff Force, rest in peace. shout out to Johnny Juice. When they called me to speak at the Long Island Entertainment Hall of Fame.
Oh, nice.
I
Yeah.
was supposed to speak on the panel, and then Tom out there asked me to perform. I had never performed, so Johnny put a little something together where B-Love's lyrics were playing, and then I rapped my part. So it was interesting. I did part of the record. You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
About
Yeah.
a year or two ago, you can see that online. But shout out to Tom and the Long Island Entertainment and Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame. Shout out to all those underground stations. I think Westbury had a station. Stony Brook,
Yeah. Stony Brook University.
all of the spots that had the little college stations, the little hole in the wall spots we used to perform and go to, all the old record stores like Positive Vibes and I think that was in Amityville or
We had
one of
Frank's Records in
Frank's
Brentwood.
Records in Brentwood. Yeah,
yeah.
that was back in the days.
Paradise record stores in Wyandotte.
Paradise. Yeah, that's
Oh
the other one.
yeah.
But Frank's Records, big shout out to the husband and the wife.
Yeah.
Big shout outs to the little photo mat that used to be in the
Yeah, right there in Brent City. Yeah.
We used to get the little cameras, the disposable cameras, do those little photo shoots, drop it off a photo mat, and we get 3 copies, so we each have a copy of it.
Hey, big shout outs to Chess King in South Shore Mall.
Yeah. Yeah, Chess King, man. I remember exactly where that was too. It was like right kind of like in the corner there, like in the middle. But there's like a little like right at the side. Yeah. That's awesome, man.
We had some good times. We really had some good times.
Those are the best times, man.
I enjoyed the opportunity to share with your audience, just chill and share and have some fun and a few laughs, with my brother here. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
We always appreciate that because we take nothing for granted. Like I said, the fact that you even talking to us, 30-something years later. You know what I'm saying?
It's crazy because this is, believe it or not, even though at times we're together, at times this is pretty rare. But we pretty much do a lot of stuff like, he'll do something, I might do something. You
can't get both of us at the same time, right?
Yeah. This is an honor, man. This is huge having both of you together, man. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. This was tremendous, man. I can't thank you enough, and yeah, this was awesome. This was a blast. So thanks so much.
So what's the name of your show?
DONversations.
DONversations.
Yeah,
so B, say your name real quick.
Who, me?
Yeah, we're gonna do a little promo for me. DONversations. Say your.
Okay. This is the BWLUV of JVC F.O.R.C.E. sitting here chilling out with DONversations.
And I'm AJ Rok, the professional hip hop junkie. And I'm with my man DONversations. Don still Strong Island representing. Check out the show, no doubt.
Rap.
Dude, you guys rock, man. You just made my day. That was awesome.
No doubt.
Nah, we appreciate you, seriously.
Yes, I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much. This was awesome, man. Everybody check them out, JVC Force. If you haven't seen or listened to their music, you got to check it out. I'm going to put links all in the description. So you got to check them out. Awesome.
Till next time. Peace.
Peace.